Often I am asked by first-time pregnant mothers or first-time dads-to-be, we don't know anything about birth, so how can we possibly become skilled for something that we've never done before? And that's a reasonable question, isn't it? I don't know how to do it. I haven't done it. I can't practice to it before it happens. In other words, it's not like a 100-yard dash where you practice, 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 or a piano recital where you practice, practice, practice. You cannot practice to birth before it happens. So here's the clue to how you resolve the conundrum in your head, and that is no woman can practice the birth that's coming up. Doesn't matter whether you're a first-time mother or whether you're having your 20th baby. You cannot practice to the birth that is coming up because there's a global reality that has always existed. It's called the first childbirth concept, which is there's no way to know what your birth is going to be like. And there's a sentence following that, which is therefore there's nothing you can really do to prepare for it. So the first part of that sentence is absolutely a global truth. There is no way to know what your birth is going to be like, whether you're having your first baby or whether you're having your 20th. You don't know what this next birth is going to be like. So we're all on equal footing in terms of that. You never know. But it's followed by an interesting statement, which is therefore there's really nothing you can do to prepare for it. Now, how did that statement come to be? Humans have existed for hundreds and thousands of years. We've had hundreds and thousands of diverse cultures. You'd think by now people would understand how to prepare for the coming birth, even though it's unknown. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because I have been fortunate enough to have lived in 30 diverse cultures. And I can tell you that all of them have their own traditional health systems. All of their health systems focus extensively on pregnancy, childbirth, and the newborn period, because all cultures around the world considered that period of life to be vulnerable. And so they become observant, and they also put on to these vulnerable life activities a lot of do this and don't do that. Even in modern culture, we hear that. Get exercise, that's a do this, right? Don't drink too much alcohol, that's a don't do that. You need to understand that as humans, we safeguard or try to safeguard the pregnancy, coming birth, and the newborn period by overlaying it with cultural or societal do this and don't do that. Modern maternity care overlays it with assessments, monitoring procedures. The natural birth movement basically overlays it by thinking positive, don't be afraid, eat good food, exercise, and trust it. So we have different ways to approach birth, and that doesn't solve your problem as a first-time mother or father, which is I don't know what is going to happen, and therefore it just feels like a blur out there of what I should do. And when I and hundreds of mothers and fathers developed the concept that 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth, I mean, that's a reality, and that giving birth is an activity each woman is going to do, and that's a reality. Ask anyone who has given birth, ask them if it's an activity. They'll tell you, yes, big one, dramatic, dynamic, life-transforming. It's a big activity. And the concept concludes with, therefore, learn some skills so you can do the activity. So it's a simple concept. You're pregnant, you're going to give birth, learn some skills, use your skills to work through the activity of birthing your baby. And that's for both you as a first-time mother-to-be and for you as a first-time father-to-be. Because if you're living or being around this first-time mother-to-be, you can help her learn skills. Mothers and fathers developed the birthing better ones. You'll learn how to prepare her body for birth as well as learning skills like communication, relaxation, breathing, and good touch. If you're going to be at the birth, then you want to help her achieve some modicum of success around the global childbirth goal number 2, which is what to do about suffering in childbirth. Every culture recognizes that women can suffer in childbirth. Birthing Better Families did in the early 1970s and the 80s was to develop an extensive array of skills to prepare for birth in pregnancy and then skills to work through the activity of birthing your baby. and from the viewpoint of a first-time father-to-be. If you're going to be at a birth, you want to be able to see and hear whether the birthing woman is coping while she's doing this activity, and make certain she does cope, because you don't want her to suffer. She doesn't want to suffer. So what is suffering caused by? Well, primarily from our viewpoint, it's just a lack of skills. I mean, think about your life. How many things do you do in your life that you have confidence about doing that you just instinctively do, or somehow skills sort of arise spontaneously? Not many. Most of us are highly skilled to do all sorts of things. And people will say to me, but pregnancy and childbirth are normal, natural, and physiological life events. So they're just these spontaneous things that happen to us, and they are. However, you have to understand that they're biological things, just like feeling horny or being randy or being hungry or even cooking. So these are biological, natural, normal, and physiological life events. So when we look at sex, if you had one time in 9 months to do it, don't you think both of you would like a set of skills to be able to do it better? And then you have to compound it, because if you're planning to labor and have a vaginal birth, you don't know when it's going to start. You don't even know when it's going to end. So that means you have to keep doing it for as long as it takes. So imagine this one-off sexual experience, and you're told that you can make choices about where you do this, what's around it, all the things that you'd like around it, but you have to do it for as long as it takes. And let's say for a first-time mother, a labor can take between 15 and 24 hours. So let's say you have to keep having sex for 15 to 24 hours. And let's say that in the beginning of that labor, you feel a sort of a tightening if it's not very painful. But if you were having sex, let's say you realize, oh, something's distracting you from the energy, but it's not discomfort. So you just keep going. But let's say 7 hours into your 14-hour labor, the contractions get quite painful and increasingly get more painful, because contractions that get closer together, stronger, and more intense are telling you that your baby is opening up your body effectively and is going to come down through and out. So then when you think about every 3 minutes having a minute of increasing pain as you're trying to have sex, would you like to have skills? So I'm serious about this. When we developed these skills, we knew we had to do this activity until our baby came out of our body, however long it took. And when I gave birth in 1970, only 5% of women were having cesareans. Not because we all had great births, the 95% of us. It's because modern maternity care wasn't sophisticated enough to do very much about it. So we, like all women prior to modern medicine, labored and had a vaginal birth. No matter the known or unknown risks, no matter the problems that arose, no matter whether they resolved themselves or led to tragedies, no matter whether we had a short birth that we thought we were going to die was so intense, to a birth which we felt was very manageable, to one in which we didn't feel anything, to one in which we felt so much pain we thought we were going to die, and it just lingered and lingered and lingered and lingered. So what we learned was that we can't predict our birth. There's no way to know what your birth is going to be like. However, by learning skills, there was something definitely we could do to prepare for it, even though we couldn't practice to the birth beforehand. Yes, in some ways we had to trust that the skills were effective, and why birthing better skills are quite different than other skills-based methods. One is they're very extensive. Your body is different than your breathing. Your breathing is different from what's going on in your head. What's going on in your head is different than how you communicate together as partners. We need to recognize that it's an activity that's infrequent. It's a one-off activity. It can't be replayed. And the memories of this one-off, infrequent, can't be replayed activity lasts in our memory for the rest of our lives as a birth story. So all of us want to look back on the birth of our baby and have at least a reasonable memory of it, if not an empowered memory. And so when Birthing Better fathers and mothers started to develop the skills in the 1970s, 1970s, when 95% of us were laboring, good or bad, positive, negative, we were doing that in the backdrop of the first ever childbirth classes being taught, which were entirely skills-based, Lamaze and Bradley. And Bradley was called Father or Husband Coach Childbirth. We went into hospitals where we had a lot of assessments, monitoring procedures, where we had no choices. We couldn't write a birth plan. Nobody was going to pay any attention to us. And we worked together to work through the activity of birthing our baby, even though we had a bucket load of assessments, monitoring, and sometimes procedures done to us. We worked together. And what did we find? We birthed better. Didn't always have a better birth, but we birthed better. My generation, the multiple millions of us, your grandparents' generation, were empowered by being skilled to work through the activity of birthing their baby. The 5% having cesareans were given a general anesthetic, so they couldn't work through the activity of surgery. Now you're given an epidural. So birthing better skills are used for all births because it is our baby's birth. Your baby matters to you. You don't really care about anybody else's birth. You care about your birth as a first-time mother-to-be and father-to-be. And therefore, by caring about your birth, become willing to become skilled and work together when the activity unfolds. Women's minds are very conscious as we do the activity. We don't have long dialogues in our mind. We can have very short ones. Oh, that contraction wasn't too bad. Oh my God, they're getting more intense. What goes on in our mind is not always revealed out our mouth, and others can't always see into our mind by looking at our face or what our body is doing. And that is why Birthing Better Families also developed skills about self-talk during birth. So what we found was that one part of our mind could rabbit on about it's not too painful, or that I'm going to die. And the other part of our mind could apply skills. Each time I breathe in now, I'm going to expand inside my pelvis, and the other mind's going to did it. And every time I breathe out, I'm going to soften on the inside of my pelvis. And we can do that not just about breathing, but are you soft between the bones you sit on? Have you softened around your rectum? So this all goes on as each contraction occurs. So what we want you to know is that it doesn't matter if you're first-time mother or 20th, you do not know what your birth is going to be like. And you cannot practice beforehand. However, there are many skills-based methods that you can choose from now, including Lamaze and Bradley, including Birthing Better, or whatever skills-based methods are available in your language in your country. The object of the concept is for us to grow a self-learning, skilled birthing population around the world for all births. Because something I learned in the United States between my first birth in 1970, when multiple millions of us were becoming skilled and we were working together in a hospital environment without choices. When I gave birth last, 12 years later, in the United States, no childbirth class was really teaching skills because a new concept had arisen, which is make a birth plan. You know what kind of birth you want. Tell your care providers, and they should try to provide you with the birth you want. But this runs up against several things. One is 99% of the women in the world lack choices. Many choices change, and you never know what your birth's going to be like. And if you ask women about what they thought their birth was going to be like, because you never know what it's going to be like, 99% of us will tell you it was nothing like we imagined. So that'll give you a clue. We cannot plan the birth we have. We're going to do the birth as it unfolds moment to moment. We're going to do that activity. We want you to have courage, and we want you to learn some skills. Now, what also happened in the 1980s, when we were told cows and cats aren't taught to birth, women don't need to be taught, they just need to be left alone to discover birth by themselves, it was forgetting that we were sick and tired of being left alone. We wanted our husbands there, and we wanted them there to be effective birth coaches. But this new childbirth concept, the choice-based concept, told fathers not to coach. You don't want to tell a woman what to do. She instinctively knows how to birth. We need fathers to know how to coach. We need men and fathers to know how to prepare our body for birth, help us learn skills to use to work through the activity of birthing our baby, and if they're with us, to help us. Why? Because they are the father of the baby. We want to grow together as mother and father. You have to do the activity as a first-time mother-to-be. If you have a first-time father-to-be or an unskilled partner who's been at other births and he lacks skills, he is not growing the continuity of skilled self that all of us as humans crave. We want to feel skilled and competent. When we work together with our own role and job and tasks, you do the birth, they help you to cope and manage and deal with, stay on top of and feel in control. Then after the birth, we work together much better. When a father is at a birth and he is unskilled and he doesn't know how to help, the woman knows it, and she will often reject his assistance after the birth because she found him incompetent during the birth when she really needed him. Don't let this happen to you. You're a first-time mother-to-be and a first-time father-to-be. Birthing Better skills were developed by people like yourself because we wanted skills to do the activity of birthing our baby. And we wanted those skills to help us as the unknown unfolded.